Welcome to Worth Your Time with your hosts from the nationally syndicated Bob and Tom Show, Kristi Lee, and the president and CEO of the Indianapolis Zoo, Dr. Rob Shumaker. Our mission to inform, entertain, and educate with guests from all aspects of life. We guarantee there isn't another podcast that features two hosts with such different backgrounds and discussions with remarkable people doing exceptional things. So let's get started. Here are your hosts, Kristi Lee and Dr. Rob Shumaker.
Welcome to Worth Your Time. Once again, Dr. Rob Shumaker and myself, Kristi Lee. This is our second part of a very interesting interview with one of the most amazing women I have ever had the chance to meet. She is the president and CEO of the Children's Museum of Indianapolis. Jennifer Place Robinson is our guest. And if you missed the first episode, you need to go back because it's very much worth listening to. It's worth your time.
You're never going to catch up. You got to listen to
you got to, because we're going to go off into a new tangent.
That's
here.
right.
And talk about some other things. But Jennifer, thanks for sticking around and doing another episode with us because you're so interesting to speak with.
That's so nice of you to say. Wow.
I'm not very nice.
Well, I wish my kids would listen to it. Yeah.
And we didn't even touch on that in the first episode. You're the mother of 5.
I am.
And you have all this work that you do. How do you keep going?
I don't know. I don't really think about it.
Really?
Because if you think about it, you'd be like, oh, I can't do it. And there are plenty of days when I feel like I can't do it. And then I text Rob and say, I can't do it.
It's true.
And then what do you tell her?
You can do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, our city, Indianapolis, needs all these great amenities, including the Children's Museum. And we love all the incredible opportunities around the city. And the Children's Museum has been around, 100 years now?
Yes.
You're getting ready for your 100th anniversary next year.
2025, 100 years.
Do you have special things planned?
We do.
You going to give us a hint?
Give us a rundown.
There'll be some cool things around the city. We've got, oh my gosh, there's exhibits that are coming in that are, I don't think I'm allowed to talk about it yet.
Okay. That's okay.
You could it's just us.
We've got everybody on this podcast. We've got some really cool exhibits slated for next year that the team is working on right now. Really celebrating 100 years, but we've really are pushing ourselves. So we're going to be bringing in some really cool properties that are pretty. How vague is that? How
all right,
is that?
I want to ask about one. I think this is public. If it's not,
we can edit it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody will hear a beep, beep, beep.
Yeah. So tell me about this Tales of the Jungle Book.
Oh, that's public.
It's public.
Yes.
We
have that right now.
What is going on with Tales of the Jungle
We
Book?
have a theater. We have a 300-seat theater, and we produce live original theater. And the Tales of the Jungle Book is our show right now, and it is delightful. And my office is right above the theater, and it's all about drums right now.
Oh, nice.
It's amazing. Yeah.
So is it about the book, about Kipling? What's it about?
It's a takeoff on the book, and it's a playwright who did this fun. They are camp counselors that are retelling the story. So it's very aligned with the book, but it's very much an interpretation. And we make these shows so they're short, so that you've got little kids and they're not like got to sit through and then go through an intermission or whatever.
Right.
And so it's an awesome introduction to live theater for little kids. And a lot of people don't know about that either.
I had no idea.
I had no idea, but I'm forced to say it because I was talking about the Jungle Book with a friend the other day.
Oh.
And a good friend of mine who's Indian. And he said, I don't understand why there's an orangutan in India. That doesn't make sense. And I said, oh, yes, it does. I said, historically, orangutans were in India and as far east as China, and today only in Southeast Asia, Borneo, and Sumatra. So they used to be all over India. So it makes perfect sense for the Jungle Book. That is accurate.
Would you like to come and tell everybody?
Are you going to bring an orangutan?
I'm not going to bring an orangutan. I might bring myself, though. I would love to see that. It's fantastic.
Anytime.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. That's really good.
Now, do you have a staff that does just theater, or do you hire that out?
So we do have a staff that does theater. So we've got a theatrical team, and we've got full-time actors on staff that perform in that space. And they also perform in the whole rest of the building. So you've got really cool shows. If you go into Dinosphere, you're going to see Mary Anning, who was an early paleontologist. You're going to see lots of characters in the Power of Children exhibit. We do Otto Frank, so Anne Frank's dad. We do just all sorts of live first-person theater around the museum. Yeah,
that's the word. I've heard people call it first-person interpretation or first-person theater, and that to me, is one of the most incredible, most successful things about this. By the way, we said earlier, largest children's museum in the United States, maybe the largest in the world.
Yeah.
And by recent voting by USA Today, #1 children's museum in the United States, no question about that. It's huge, it's fantastic. The exhibits that have that first person perspective, people that are characters, maybe recognizable like Otto Frank, or maybe people like, yeah, I live in Egypt.
Absolutely.
I'm a person that lives in Egypt.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Can you talk about how you find somebody that can be authentic?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard.
It's hard.
It's really hard. And we've really grown that program. And so we're looking for people who are great actors, but also we often have them come out of character, particularly if they're doing a first-person historical piece and say, hey, I'm Matt, and I've researched this life of Otto Frank, and there's a conversation. So we also need people who are good educators and can take talking points and lead informal conversations. And that's really where the magic happens, particularly for those more thought-provoking exhibits. It's really important. And we do auditions. We're constantly auditioning. Sometimes we are promoting people who are interpreters. So that's, again, a job that I had at one point, who are maybe educators and they become more theatrical. So it can go either way. But it is a real skill, and I have so enjoyed seeing that program grow. And I think about how I was doing it back in the day, and it's so polished now, and the costumes are awesome. And I won't say.
Have you ever put on a costume as the president and jumped down
sure,
there?
back in the day.
No,
yeah.
today.
Have I worn a costume
You
yet?
should. Surprise.
Not the Hey Kool-Aid.
No, not the Kool-Aid guy. No.
Yes.
Listen to episode 1. Yeah.
Yes, I have dressed up like a Egyptologist. I've done that, but I haven't played a role yet as the president.
All right.
Yeah.
And we're going to hit on Egyptology in just a second. But the other thing that I find wonderful about the Children's Museum is you have adult nights as well.
We do.
And that is so much fun as an adult to go back and drink at the children's. Sorry.
And that's really a good point, because we do those exhibits that are intergenerational and beloved. Like we did a Transformer exhibit. I don't know who was happier, the dads or the kids. And so those adult evenings are just that. We want people to come and enjoy it without the burden of, when you're a parent, you're worrying about who's got to go to the bathroom and who's hungry and who's thirsty. And we have a blast. We'll be doing that again in August. It's called Museum by Moonlight.
Yep.
And we've got a beautiful theme this year, which is called Museum Ever After. And so it's going to be a fairy tale theme. And we are inviting people to dress in costume, and I do have my costume ready.
Really? Are you going to tell us what it is?
If I can say it the right way. Maleficent.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
that's
Maleficent.
Yeah.
So well done.
Yeah, my family really encouraged me. They're like, you got to go big.
Not because
you're the
a
president.
Witch, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
You and Angelina Jolie. There
Yeah.
you go. Very nice.
All right,
Well
let's
done.
jump into
Let's hear about it.
archaeology.
Egypt. You start with Egypt.
Yeah,
Give us the rundown. You have spent so much time in Egypt.
I have.
How did
I
that-
have.
Come about.
So that, it's just so fuzzy. It's fuzzy. But we actually were doing an exhibit, a temporary exhibit about maps as tools for exploration and adventure. And this is part of that hunting and gathering or networking. I was looking at a National Geographic, and I'm like, wow, here's this guy who is mapping pyramids with robots. I had spent a year studying abroad and studied Greek archaeology, wanted to go to Egypt, and that was my whole plan for going to Greece, but got stuck because of the Persian Gulf War. So I was never able to actually go to Egypt. So I've always had this love, and this actually started with the Children's Museum, because we had a mummy. My dad would take me after church, look at the mummy. I was too afraid for a long time, like maybe a year or so. And I finally looked at the mummy, and I was hooked. And so we think about like children's learning. Like my dad, that minute, started buying me a subscription to National Geographic, all these archaeology magazines, comic books that had Egyptian characters in them. And so he really stoked that love of Egypt. So fast forward, we were doing this exhibit about maps. Long story short is we featured Dr. Zahi Hawass, who was the lead archaeologist at the time. And I went over to film him for the exhibit. And when I was there, he's telling me more about your museum. And I told him, and he said, we don't have anything like that here. Will you just stay and have a meeting with some people because I want to talk to you about this. And that led to me going back and forth for 7 years and designing and building a children's museum for the kids in Egypt.
Incredible. Right?
That is incredible.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And it's still there. I actually left a week or so before the Arab Spring broke out. I was staying right there at Tahrir Square and working at the Egyptian Museum and never saw the museum built. I never went back again. It was like, God willing, it all happens and it's great, but I did not see it until I went back last year for the first time. And I've stayed in touch with the team because we had a friendship. I was designing the exhibits and then they were figuring out how to build them and operate them, and went back, and I didn't really know what I would expect. But you're talking about a whole nother country. You're talking about a country that does not do interactive exhibits. Was blown away. Water tables, exactly how we did a lot of copying off of ourselves.
Build your own pyramid?
Little pyramids, build your own pharaoh statue. Wow. It's gorgeous. And a lot of pride with that team that I would just bust out crying when I walked in the door. It's gorgeous.
That's fantastic.
I'll be going again in a couple weeks because we are hoping to do another artifact show. We've borrowed from them. We did a King Tut exhibit. And so then, again, that's part of doing the fun things for kids, but also these real heavy-duty object shows that we did Treasures of Ancient Greece. We've done the Terracotta Warriors. And so this is going to be another exhibit, hopefully, in that series of real objects from ancient times.
That's always been one of my favorites. I love Egypt.
You've been in a tomb. A real tomb. Right?
Yeah.
Now, so this is the phrase that I'm trying to understand. You were lowered in a bucket?
Yeah.
In a bucket?
Yeah, it was wild because these were tombs that were outside of the Giza Plateau at the Step Pyramid in Saqqara. And there's lots of family tombs that are buried around the base of that pyramid, and they're literally just big holes. And the only way to get in, they've got a winch system where you've got a bucket and you've got a rope, and you step in the bucket and you get lowered down.
That sounds fine.
Yeah.
It was fine.
Like how far down?
Oh my gosh, it had to have been 30 feet or something like that.
And you're claustrophobic?
No, but see, I was until I was the Kool-Aid man. And I coached myself through it. Seriously. And you're in that outfit?
Sure.
So people have to listen to the first episode when we talk about the Kool-Aid man. But it's just a breathing thing.
Okay.
And it's fine.
And what's in there?
Yeah.
When you go down?
Oh, so sometimes there's nothing because things have already been excavated. Sometimes this particular crypt was filled with coffins and mummies. So it was a family burial, and they even had their dog was mummified.
Wow.
So it was generations of a particular family. So this would have been a royal family because not everybody was mummified. So you're seeing literally hands and legs, and sometimes they're all together, and sometimes through time they've gotten disassociated.
And what would have been the timing of when those mummies were placed?
So these are late mummies. So probably the very end, I would say even after the pyramids were built. So you're getting closer into the Greco-Roman period that people were still mummifying, but certainly not putting people in pyramids.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
have you been on a dig? Have you actually found something?
I have never found anything. I've been on dinosaur digs, and I actually tripped over a vertebrae and found a triceratops.
Wow.
So many people can say that.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not the best technical digging person. So even after finding that, the team I was with said, "Oh, we're going to need you to. It's really important that you go dig over there." And they handled the horn and everything, but it was just neat to be there.
Where was this?
This was in South Dakota.
Okay.
And that's how we created our Dinosphere exhibit, is that we dug in South Dakota, we've dug in Wyoming, and so we've tried to have that real excavation be part of the process.
And we were talking off the air about, we're going to talk about getting your hands dirty. We're going back and forth a little bit, but since you brought it up, digging at the museum, because there are fossil exhibits, and with the COVID thing, everybody's worried about germs anymore. How does the museum take care of that?
Yeah, I would say we have an amazing cleaning regimen and just supersonic team members, chemicals. It's trial and error, but it is the best of the best as far as keeping things clean. And we don't want to be that museum that looks run down, and it's hard. We have 1 million visitors, 1 million plus. And so a lot of cleaning happens throughout the day, but also at night. We have dig experiences. So tying the threads together, me going to Egypt, me going out to the dinosaur digs was part of the research of creating those exhibits. Because what we really want is for people to feel a little bit of that excitement of something that has happened in real life, and you get to participate in part of the process. So whether that's digging up a dinosaur or putting together the lid of a sarcophagus in a recreation of a mummy tomb. So we did actually that one of the tombs I went in, we ended up taking photos of all the walls, and we scanned it and we printed out the hieroglyphs, and we used wallpaper, and it looks like Seti the First tomb. So that realism, and then kids have such amazing imaginations. Like literally, my kids, if I pulled out the Tupperware and turned on the water in the kitchen, they would lose their minds because they're like, oh my gosh, we're playing with water. But if you put a little bit of context around it, like now you're in a river, or now you're in the Cretaceous, or you've gone back into time, and you're asking them to put together a play pattern, which is usually digging, filling, or spilling are the key play patterns. They get lost in this world. And that's why they cry when you try to take them home. Right. They're in this state of flow. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, his amazing educator and philosopher, who has talked about that state of flow when you're doing something that you love so much and you've lost track of time. That's what the kids are doing. And so that's our ultimate outcome when we're planning, when we're researching, we're figuring out how are we going to make kids so happy that they're going to cry when they leave.
In a good way.
No, they're really sad.
I get it. That's fantastic.
I have a question. Have you noticed over the years a difference? How has technology changed the way kids play?
I think it hasn't changed the way kids play.
Really?
If they had a choice to look at an iPad or dig up a fake dinosaur, every time they're going to get in there and dig. And so that's what's so interesting, is that we forget that is the most fun thing to do. And it's like the iPhone or the iPad is the default. Where the magic happens is where you use technology to enhance a play pattern or to allow attention to drift onto an object. Dr. Rob came and saw our Sound and Light show.
That's fantastic.
That goes with our giant sauropod, and you've got projection mapping, and you can map a plane or a watering hole behind the dinosaur display, and then you're starting to envision what life was like during the Jurassic. And so that's where I think technology really goes hand in hand. I don't think it replaces that curiosity and wonder, but I think it can help you go a little bit deeper to imagine something that maybe you can't see.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, for me, when I'm at the Children's Museum or at the zoo, and I don't advertise it, but I'll look around, and to me, I know whatever we've been involved in, that it's successful when not one person has their phone out.
Yeah.
Everybody's engaged in something, and you go anywhere else where there's nothing engaging, everyone's got their head down looking at their phone.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the biggest compliment ever, when you can't see a phone anywhere, or if it comes out, it's take a picture.
Take a picture of what you're doing.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
That is cool.
And I think we can work with technology, is that we've been purposeful about photo ops, because that's also memory making. And that's another big thing that we push for, is how families can make a memory, and you enjoy that memory so much, and then you see it when you go home, and then it drives another visit. And
we do that at the zoo.
Absolutely.
Too. Absolutely.
Yeah, right?
You got to do it. Got to do it.
Yeah. But it's just interesting to me because my kids are older, so I was fortunate that they're not that old, but they were still very much not on their phones until they were probably in their teens, well into their teens. And I think I've noticed younger kids would rather not be on their phone.
Absolutely.
We had a story the other day about a high school where they made the kids put their phones in pouches, and they were amazed at how much social interaction they had in the hallways now, and they loved it. And to me, that's a really good sign that maybe we're going back a little bit in a different direction.
And it's interesting, in museums we talk about guided tours with the headphones. And we have done it for a few, but we try not to do it because we are convicted that learning happens when you're having a conversation. And so we really plan for social learning. We even write our labels as questions, so that you're usually visiting with somebody that you might turn to. We think about children asking questions, and the labels are written as a way to answer because no adult wants to feel like they don't have an answer. But it's all based on that notion of conversation. And we know with learning that if you have a conversation about something, you're more likely to recall it, use it later in life. It goes back to that memory making. So those are all very much planned for behaviors when we're creating.
What is your dream exhibit? What have you not had yet that you want?
I want to do Black Panther.
Okay.
I'm obsessed with the notion of the way that story is told through the lens of if Wakanda was real, when you're taking a different culture and futurism and the notion of a hero that speaks to a lot of people who haven't had a hero to look at. I think we could do a great job. Marvel, I think we could do a great job.
There you go, Marvel.
Is there a doubt that you would do a great job? It would be stellar.
There's no doubt.
Yeah,
that'd be incredible.
I think it would be. But part of my job has been to try to work with people who may, I'm Jennifer from Indiana, and I want to do an exhibit with Disney. It has taken time to get to that point where other properties want to work with us because just not understanding our scope and our scale, which I get it, but we've been persistent.
So it's interesting, and I don't know if it started with you, but I'd like to hear the story of it. One of the words that is apparently one of your core values at the museum, or where you describe yourself as a museum, is humility.
Yeah.
And to me, that's an incredible and interesting way for a museum to characterize itself. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. We are interpreters. So going back to what I've talked about earlier is having a North Star. Mm-hmm. We are mining stories that have happened to other people that they are not our stories to tell. We've been given permission to be entrusted to tell these stories. And so that comes with a certain degree of humility because you're giving up control. When you make a decision to work with a family, even to work with Nickelodeon, they created Dora. We did do Dora, Diego, and it's their property. And so at the end of the day, we will interpret it the way that we know that families will enjoy it, that it will be safe, that kids will have a good time. But you do give up some of the ego when you make a choice to have a partner, but you get so much more back in return. Those stories where you can take a beloved character and put it on top of a play pattern that would happen anyway. But now you've got a hook that people are like, oh my gosh, a new Dora movie's coming out. So why wouldn't I go see that at the museum? Mm-hmm. I just think it makes it richer.
Yeah.
You also have curiosity in your mission statement, which I love.
Yes.
I think everybody deep down is curious. And they don't know where to channel that sometimes.
And I think we go into adulthood thinking we have to have all the answers. And so we're trying to flip that script that astronauts are curious. People who are making big discoveries and solving big problems are curious. And it's okay to not have all the answers. So how do you get that spark back to be excited about the world around you, to ask questions, to be curious? That's what we're trying to foster. And we, as a museum, I think a lot of museums used to be more focused on this content acquisition. What did people learn when they went through an exhibit, and what are they saying? What words are they using that are different pre and post? But we really realized that our sweet spot is stoking that curiosity. We get people to wonder about something, to have a joyful feeling. We deal on emotions a lot because the emotion that you have in an experience is probably going to make you want to come back. If you're having a good time and you laugh, you're going to want to come back for that emotion, as opposed to, I'm going to learn this particular fact. And so that's when we changed our mission. And we decided that we want to be the place where we ignite joy, wonder, and curiosity in children and also in adults.
You do that tenfold, hundredfold, millionfold.
It's fantastic. Part of that I know is you go to a lot of museums, and not just kid museums. You go to a lot of museums. So what are the ones that stand out to you in this sense, that are leading the way, that are really innovators, the museums where you would tell me, don't miss those museums if you go to that city, or go to that city just to see that museum?
Yeah. There's the tried and true American Museum of Natural History. You're going to find
incredible
things in there that you won't see anywhere else in the world. But there's also some obscure museums that I am in love with. This museum in Hutchinson, Kansas, which is called the Cosmosphere. And they are a repository for anything that NASA doesn't want and the Smithsonian doesn't want.
Wow.
And amazing storytellers. I understood the whole path of the birth of rocketry and how it was used, the decision to use it for space travel, because they start with World War II and they talk about building rockets to use as bombs, but the narrative that they weave, and then all of a sudden you turn the corner and there's a Russian early capsule. So they've got the real stuff, but they are such good storyteller. Completely obscure. We've borrowed some objects from them, but that's the Cosmosphere. Love it. There's amazing museums in Canada, the Canadian War Museum and the Museum of Civilization. Super immersive. Like this idea of I'm walking and I don't really know what I'm looking at, but I'm actually in a trench and they're recreating trench warfare, and I'm seeing helmets and journals and diaries, and I'm pulling stuff out from in between the sandbags. And that's really where I've learned my point of view for creating exhibits is the traveling and seeing these really wild museums that are often obscure.
And where in Canada is that?
That's up in, I don't remember. It's the Canadian Museum of Civilization.
Okay, we'll look it up for you.
Those, did you call them obscure? They are. I've never heard of them, but that's incredible. People should know about them. I should know about them. That's incredible.
And you think you can learn wherever you go.
Sure.
I learned from theme parks. I'm obsessed with Galaxy's Edge at Hollywood Studios because you want to live there and you don't want to leave. And so those are things that we're still learning, and we've learned from a lot of other industries, museums and also non-museums.
What do your kids like to do? They go to the museum much?
Some of them do. We had a Minecraft exhibit, and they all came back in town for that. I've got one who's studying anthropology, and we'll see what he does with that. Some of them play music.
Okay.
One of them may be going to law school.
That's awesome.
One of them wants to be a pilot. Awesome. I will say they're all pretty confident, and I won't take credit for that, but I do feel like the museum had part of that because the people that work at the museum care about the kids, you know what I mean? And so I know it sounds so silly, but it's like they would talk about wanting to go back to a visit because they want to see Dinosphere, but they want to find Josh, who works in Dinosphere.
Sure.
So that's part of the equation, the actors
what a great
and the interpreters. Oh my God. I know. I was that mom where I'm like, they're like, Jennifer Robinson, come get your kids. They're in the Egypt exhibit.
The Mummy? I haven't been there in a while.
No, the Mummy had to go back to Chicago, the Art Institute. But we have a fake mummy.
That's okay.
Because we're really good at making fake
There you go, fake
stuff.
mummy.
Yeah.
I love the Mummy.
I got to tell you, the Children's Museum is awfully lucky to have you as president and CEO. Our city is awfully lucky to have you leading this incredible cultural organization. Largest children's museum in the country, #1 children's museum in the United States by popular vote, no question about it. And I'm awfully lucky to have you as a friend and colleague. I'm so glad we talked to you.
And
so glad we
Thank you,
talked to
Dr.
you.
Rob.
Glad to finally meet you. And if somebody would like more information about the Children's Museum, where would I direct them?
www.childrensmuseum.org.
Pretty easy.
Our website.
It just all they need is Children's Museum. That's it.
Children's Museum.
That's it.
Yeah,
because
there's
that's all
only
you need.
one.
There's just one.
Jennifer, thank you so much for your time. This has been wonderful. Just
you both.
Great interview. Definitely worth your time.
Worth our time. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
And don't forget, we will be back with more great guests. Dr. Rob Shumaker, Kristi Lee here. And we love for you to tell everybody about our podcast, Worth Your Time. And leave us a review if you have a chance.
If you like it, rate it and review it. If you don't like it, just
keep your mouth shut.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
You've been listening to Worth Your Time with Dr. Rob Shumaker and Kristi Lee. If you like what you hear, please give a review wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to tell your friends. Word of mouth is the best compliment. Thanks to our producers, Chris Spangle of Leaders and Legends, LLC. You can reach him at leadersandlegends.net. Also, thanks to Sophie Ritz. I'm Christopher Geisen. Thanks for joining us.